Have you ever wondered if what we call love is sometimes fear wearing perfume? If the warmth we chase isn't always connection, but a disguise for the cold silence we can't face alone? Most people don't fall in love because they are strong and whole. They fall because they are scared. Scared of the echo inside their own mind. Scared of the quiet that reveals who they really are. So they cling to hands, to promises, to the illusion that another soul can save them from themselves. The Stoics warned us long ago. The chains we choose for ourselves are the hardest to break. And those chains, they rarely look like prison bars. They come wrapped as romance. They sound like laughter at midnight. They feel like comfort, like safety, like someone saying, "You complete me." But beneath all that sweetness, you can feel the iron, the subtle pull of dependence, the invisible weight of needing someone to feel whole. We call it love, but sometimes it's fear, beautifully disguised. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And maybe that's true in love too. We imagine loneliness as unbearable, so we build our lives around avoiding it. We'd rather deal with the storms of another person's chaos than the quiet thunder of our own mind. We spend years patching the holes in someone else's heart, while our own slowly bleeds unseen. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you sat alone, without distraction, and felt at peace? When was the last time you didn't reach for a screen, a voice, a body, just to avoid being alone with your thoughts? Most of us would rather face heartbreak than silence, because silence exposes the truth, that many relationships are not built on love, but on escape. Escape from emptiness, escape from uncertainty, escape from ourselves. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Don't fear death. Fear never starting to live." And that's exactly what happens when we can't stand being single. We stop living. We build routines that look like love, but feel like suffocation. We exchange authenticity for approval. We trade freedom for familiarity. But there's another way. You don't have to close your heart to love. You just have to open your eyes to truth. Love should never be a cage you decorate with pretty words. It should be a choice, not a need. A union between two whole people, not two halves clutching at each other for air. So this isn't a message against love. It's a call to take your power back before you give it away. To stand so strong on your own that when love comes, it finds you free, not afraid. Imagine living that way. No longer begging for attention. No longer shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's comfort. Imagine waking up knowing that your peace can't be stolen, because it belongs entirely to you. That's what the Stoics meant by freedom. Not the absence of connection, but the absence of control. And maybe that's what real love was meant to be all along. Not dependency, not escape, but two free spirits choosing to walk side by side, not because they need each other, but because they admire the strength in one another's solitude. So before we dive into the 10 Stoic reasons why staying single might be the most powerful decision you ever make, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what if being single isn't a curse, but a form of strength most people never discover? What if solitude isn't emptiness, but the forge where your soul becomes unbreakable? Because this journey, this path of standing tall, of learning to be enough, of choosing from clarity instead of fear, is the heart of what we build here. If you're walking the true Stoic way, hit subscribe, because this journey is about reclaiming your freedom, your clarity, and your power. It doesn't take a bad person to ruin your life. It only takes the wrong one. For you. That's the truth most people learn too late. They spend years mistaking compatibility for chemistry, attention for affection, comfort for connection. Then one day, they wake up and realize they've been shrinking, bending, erasing pieces of who they are, all to keep someone else from leaving. You don't lose yourself all at once. It happens in whispers. You silence your opinion during an argument just to keep the peace. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You start dressing differently, talking differently, thinking differently, until the reflection in the mirror feels like a stranger wearing your skin. That's how attachment steals your freedom. Slowly, sweetly, while pretending to be love. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But he could have added this: it also depends on the quality of the people you allow into those thoughts. Because when you let the wrong person close enough, Their chaos becomes your chaos. Their insecurities start to rewrite your peace. You stop hearing your own inner voice because theirs is always louder, always demanding, always judging, always pulling you off balance. And yet most people stay. Not because they're happy, but because they're afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid that walking away means starting over. Afraid of the silence that comes after goodbye. But what they don't realize is that every day you stay in the wrong attachment, you're not saving the relationship, you're losing yourself. Every sunrise you spend trying to fix someone who doesn't want to change, you're spending the most valuable currency you have, time. Every day you stay single, you're saving years of recovery. Years you would have wasted repairing the damage from giving your heart to the wrong hands. Being single isn't a punishment, it's protection. A shield that keeps your soul clean while everyone else is busy collecting emotional scars. The Stoics called this kind of strength apatheia. Not apathy, but calm mastery over your desires. It means choosing freedom over addiction, clarity over confusion. It means seeing through the illusion of needing someone and realizing that peace isn't found in another person. It's found in self-respect. Think about how many people stay tied to toxic attachments just because they don't know who they are without them. They mistake familiarity for destiny. They call it love. But what they're really saying is, I don't know how to live without this chaos. And the more they cling, the weaker they become. When you choose to stay single, you choose to break that pattern. You choose to walk alone rather than be led in circles by the wrong person. You choose truth over comfort. It's not easy. Detachment never is. It's a kind of death. The death of fantasies, of expectations, of what you hoped someone would be. But on the other side of that death is rebirth. The rebirth of your clarity, your peace, your power. When you're not desperate, you start to see people clearly. You're no longer blinded by the need to be loved, so you finally notice who's real and who's pretending. You stop romanticizing potential and start respecting patterns. You learn to ask the questions you used to avoid. Do they bring peace or drama? Do they respect my boundaries or do they test them? Do they inspire growth or do they drain my energy? Freedom isn't just about being single. It's about being able to say no. No to manipulation, no to disrespect, no to anyone who tries to convince you that love means losing yourself. When you belong to yourself, you stop begging for belonging from others. And something incredible happens. When you stop chasing the wrong attachments, you start attracting the right energy. People who value peace are drawn to those who live it. People who know love recognize it in your strength, not your need. So don't fear being single. Fear being half alive inside a relationship that kills your spirit one compromise at a time. It's better to walk alone in truth than together in illusion. Because every moment you spend protecting your peace is an investment in your future. A future that's built on freedom, not fear. And when the right person finally comes, you'll know. Because you'll be ready, not needy. You won't be looking for someone to complete you. You'll be looking for someone who respects your completeness. Until then, let your solitude be sacred. Let it cleanse you, strengthen you, and prepare you for love that doesn't cost your freedom. This is what we practice here at True Stoic Way. Clarity before attachment, freedom before illusion. Time. It's the one currency we can never earn back. You can lose money and make it again. You can lose friends and find new ones. But once a single day slips through your fingers, it's gone forever. And yet, people spend their time the way gamblers throw dice, hoping that giving it to the wrong person will somehow lead to happiness. One of the greatest gifts of staying single is that your time belongs fully to you. Every sunrise, every quiet hour, every late night spark of creativity, it's yours. You get to decide how to spend it, not negotiate it away piece by piece in a relationship that drains you more than it fulfills you. When you're tied to the wrong person, time stops being your own. Your schedule becomes a compromise. Your weekends turn into obligations. Even your silence belongs to someone else, interrupted by their moods, their needs, their endless emotional bookkeeping. You start living reactively, adjusting every moment around another person's storms. But when you're single, you get to live intentionally. You wake up without anxiety, without having to explain why you stayed up late working on a dream, or reading something that stirred your soul. You can chase your curiosity, follow your focus, and design your day around your priorities. Seneca said, "It is not that life is short, but that we waste much of it," and he was right. Most people don't live short lives. They just give their best hours to the wrong things. They pour years into relationships that go nowhere, arguments that solve nothing, and emotional chaos that adds nothing to their growth. When you're single, you reclaim all that time. You realize how much progress you can make when you're not constantly explaining yourself or managing someone else's emotions. When you're single, your mornings are your temple. You wake up not to a fight, but to silence. Sacred, clean, full of potential. You can train, meditate, write, build, dream. You can listen to your thoughts instead of defending them. You begin to see that time is not an enemy to fill, but a river to guide. You become the one rowing the boat, choosing when to rest, when to steer, when to go deeper into the current. The person who controls their time controls their life, and the person who gives away their time without thought gives away their freedom. That's why staying single, for a season or for a lifetime, is not emptiness, it's mastery. It's your chance to learn how to use time well before anyone else's presence can shape it. Think about how much peace there is in deciding your own pace. No guilt for staying in the gym an extra hour. No resentment for needing space. No compromises on dreams that require late nights or early mornings. You get to build momentum without interruption. You get to create without permission. Time is the purest mirror of your values. What you do with it reveals who you really are. When you're single, you get to align your time with your purpose, not someone else's comfort. You discover the deep satisfaction of progress, the quiet pride of a day spent building something that matters to you. And here's the paradox. When you finally learn to protect your time, you also learn to protect your peace. Because how you use your hours shapes how you think, and how you think shapes how you live. So stop seeing your single season as a pause. It's not a waiting room for love. It's the training ground for clarity. Every hour spent in focus, discipline, and self-growth becomes a foundation that will hold you steady no matter who enters your life later. Guard your time the way a warrior guards his sword, with respect, with awareness, with intention, because time is life in motion. The moment you start treating it like something sacred, your entire world begins to shift. When you're single, you learn that saying no to distractions isn't loneliness, it's liberation. You no longer chase validation through busyness or approval through sacrifice. You begin to understand that solitude doesn't take time from you. It gives time back to you. And once your time is yours again, your mind follows. There's a kind of noise that never comes from the outside world. It comes from people. From the constant checking in, the unspoken expectations, the emotional tides that rise and fall without warning. Relationships, even good ones, are filled with noise. But solitude, real, chosen solitude, is pure silence. And in that silence, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to hear yourself again. Most people think self-mastery is about control, forcing discipline, pushing harder, grinding endlessly. But the Stoics knew better. Self-mastery isn't about domination. It's about harmony, the ability to direct your mind, body, and spirit toward what matters, without being pulled apart by distraction or emotion. And the truth is, you can't build that kind of strength when your energy is scattered across constant drama. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Think about that. Freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about being able to command yourself to do what you should, even when comfort tempts you to quit. And there's no better place to practice that than in solitude. When you're single, the silence becomes your mirror. You see your habits clearly, your weaknesses honestly, your patterns without excuses. There's no one to blame for your distractions, no one to save you from your own laziness. And that's a gift, because self-mastery begins where excuses end. In solitude, you start to build the foundations of strength. You train your body, not to impress anyone, but to sharpen your will. You wake up early because you said you would, not because someone expects it. You push through the final rep, finish the last page, or meditate through the last minute of discomfort simply to prove that you can. Every small act of discipline stacks on top of the last, until one day you realize you're no longer fighting to change. You've become change itself. That's what self-mastery looks like in real life. Not perfection, not a calendar full of goals, but quiet consistency, the kind that turns ordinary mornings into sacred rituals. When you're single, your mornings belong to you. No arguments waiting to happen, no emotional fog to clear, just the cold air, the first sip of coffee, the clarity that comes when your mind is your own. You begin to notice the power of order, how keeping your room clean affects your focus, how finishing what you start builds pride, how saying no to distractions, the messages, the mindless scrolling, the temptations, gives you a kind of stillness you've never felt before. You realize that solitude isn't isolation, it's concentration. Every moment of silence becomes a training session for your soul. You learn to sit with boredom instead of escaping it. You learn to use discomfort as a signal to grow instead of a reason to run. You stop waiting for motivation and start relying on discipline. And the best part, the results compound. The Stoics called it arete, virtue, excellence in character. It's what happens when discipline and purpose align, when you start living as if your life is your craft, and every day is a chance to refine it. You stop being a victim of moods, impulses, or other people's chaos. You become the kind of person who stands steady while everyone else collapses under pressure. Yes, solitude can be tough. There will be days when silence feels heavy, when the lack of validation stings. But those are the days when your growth takes root. Because every time you resist the urge to escape that silence, you're forging something unbreakable: self-respect. The quiet pride of knowing you're keeping promises to yourself that no one else can see. Think of solitude as your training ground, not your prison. The world will try to convince you that being alone means you're missing out. But what you're really doing is preparing, mastering your body, your habits, your mind, so that when you eventually share your life with someone, you do it from strength, not from need. Because the truth is, if you can't master yourself when you're alone, you'll never master yourself in a relationship. Love will test your patience, your focus, your ability to stay calm in chaos. Without inner order, you'll break under outer pressure. But when you've already built strength in solitude, you carry that steadiness into everything you touch. So use this season to build. Build routines that make you powerful. Build thoughts that make you peaceful. Build habits that make you unstoppable. Every discipline you build alone makes you unshakable. That's what true Stoic way is about. And as you keep walking that path, something shifts. The silence that once felt empty becomes sacred. The solitude that once scared you becomes your sanctuary. You realize that mastery isn't found in noise or approval or company. It's found in the quiet space where you meet yourself and finally decide who you're going to be. Nothing drains your spirit faster than being tied to the wrong person. Toxic people don't always arrive with warnings. They don't walk in shouting chaos. They whisper comfort first. They disguise control as care and manipulation as love. At first, you think they bring warmth, but slowly, they start dimming your light until you forget what peace feels like. That's what emotional poison does. It doesn't kill you suddenly. It seeps into your days, drop by drop, through guilt, through blame, through constant emotional guessing games. You start walking on eggshells, terrified that one wrong word will trigger an explosion. Your laughter becomes quieter, your dreams smaller. Your mind, once full of clarity, becomes a battlefield of doubt. And yet you stay, because you convince yourself it's love, because they apologize after every storm, because you remember the moments that were good and hope they'll come back. But what you're really doing is this: you're letting muddy shoes step on your inner fire. Every time you forgive what should not be forgiven, every time you excuse what should not be excused, you allow your energy, your life's fuel, to be trampled. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." But how can your thoughts stay clean when your environment is soaked in negativity? The people you let into your space don't just influence your mood, they shape your entire perception of life. If that person constantly drains you, criticizes you, or manipulates you, their voice starts to replace your own. And before you know it, you can't tell whether your exhaustion is emotional or spiritual. The Stoics warned about this centuries ago. They taught that guarding your mind is a sacred duty, because your energy, your focus, your inner calm, those are the tools that build a good life. And toxic people? They rob you of those tools. They don't just take your time, they steal your direction. Or, when you stay single, you protect that energy. You build an invisible shield around your peace. No more decoding moods. No more pretending everything's fine. No more waking up anxious, already rehearsing apologies for things you didn't do. Solitude gives you the space to breathe, to wake up without dread, to fall asleep without tension, to move through your day without fear of emotional explosions waiting for you at home. Your energy is your life force. Once it's gone, your creativity fades, your patience thins, your passion dies. Guard it like a warrior guards his flame. That means learning one of the hardest Stoic practices, saying no. No, I won't let you manipulate my emotions. No, I won't apologize for setting boundaries. No, I won't trade my peace for your approval. Saying no is not cruelty, it's clarity. It's the moment you realize you don't owe anyone access to your mind just because they want it. You don't have to explain why you choose quiet over drama or solitude over confusion. You have the right, no, the duty, to protect your peace. Once your energy is clean, everything changes. You see the world differently. You start noticing beauty again, in the way the light falls on your morning coffee, in the sound of rain, in the simple quiet of your own breath. You start recognizing how heavy life felt when you carried someone else's chaos, and you swear to yourself, never again. Because once you've felt peace, chaos feels unbearable. Once you've lived in clarity, confusion feels like poison. That's why solitude is not loneliness, it's detox. It's where you rinse out years of noise and return to the stillness that was always yours. So if you're walking through life right now carrying the weight of someone's negativity, understand this. You are not required to keep bleeding just because someone else refuses to stop cutting. You don't have to fix them. You only have to protect you. And the moment you do, your energy begins to rise again. You start moving through life lighter, sharper, steadier. You begin to feel alive, not in reaction to someone else, but in harmony with yourself. That's the power of protecting your energy. It's not selfish, it's survival, it's strength, it's self-respect. And once your energy is clean, you see the world differently. You stop letting chaos rent space in your mind. You stop mistaking noise for love. And for the first time in a long time, you remember what peace actually feels like. At first, being alone feels like standing in front of a mirror you've avoided your whole life. The silence gets loud. Every thought you've been running from finally catches up. The distractions fade, and suddenly it's just you, your flaws, your memories, your regrets, your fears. And that's when most people panic. They reach for noise. They grab their phone, text someone, scroll endlessly, anything to fill the stillness. Because silence doesn't just reveal peace, it reveals truth. And truth can be uncomfortable. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate what matters." In other words, you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely unseen. You can be loved, admired, even desired, and still ache inside. Because no one truly understands what's happening within you. That's not loneliness. That's disconnection from yourself. The Stoics understood this long before psychology gave it a name. They believed that the highest form of strength is learning to be content with one's own soul, not in arrogance, but in peace. When you're single, you have a chance to develop that kind of relationship with yourself, to stop running, to finally sit down with your own mind and ask, who am I, really, when the world goes quiet? The first time you do this, it's hard. You might feel restless, you might feel like something's missing, but stay there, stay with the silence, because if you stay long enough, something incredible begins to shift. The silence that once scared you becomes your sanctuary. You start to discover that you don't need constant company to feel alive. You begin to enjoy the small, quiet rituals of solitude, walking alone without headphones, letting your thoughts breathe, eating alone without rushing, actually tasting the food, sitting in your room at night not to escape, but to recharge. You realize that peace doesn't come from being around others. It comes from being okay when it's just you. Loving your own company doesn't mean you isolate yourself from the world. It means you no longer depend on the world to escape yourself. You stop seeking validation from noise. You start finding joy in presence. You begin to notice the beauty in simplicity, how light fills a room, how your breath slows when you're calm, how much creativity flows when no one's watching. There's a power that only reveals itself in solitude, a quiet confidence that whispers, "I'm enough." And once that feeling takes root, you stop chasing people who can't see your worth. You stop begging for attention. You stop bending yourself just to keep someone close. Because why would you? You've learned to enjoy being with yourself. You've learned to be whole without applause. This is one of the most liberating truths you'll ever discover. Once you love your own company, you'll never fear being alone again. You'll see solitude not as emptiness, but as expansion. You'll understand that loneliness isn't cured by another person. It's cured by self-connection. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you learn to love your own company, you actually become better at love itself. You no longer enter relationships from need, but from choice. You no longer seek completion, but connection. You give freely, because your cup is already full. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to be, but because peace is magnetic. The Stoics called this inner stillness ataraxia, a calm that cannot be disturbed by external noise. It's not coldness, it's clarity. When you find that space within yourself, you begin to live differently. You walk slower, you listen deeper. You no longer rush to fill silence because you've realized silence is not your enemy. It's your teacher. So take that walk alone. Sit in that quiet room. Turn off the distractions for a while and let the silence speak. At first, it may whisper, but soon, it will tell you everything you need to know. Because when you can sit with yourself in peace, you've already mastered half the Stoic way. One of the most dangerous prisons we build for ourselves is the need for approval. You may not see the walls, but you can feel them. Every time you hesitate to speak your truth. Every time you change who you are just to be accepted. Every time you sacrifice peace for applause. Most people live their entire lives inside that invisible cage, mistaking validation for love and attention for worth. It starts early. We're taught to please. We learn that good behavior earns affection, that fitting in keeps us safe, that being liked means we matter. And then we grow up. But we never really outgrow that hunger. We just change the source. Instead of seeking approval from parents or teachers, we start seeking it from lovers, co-workers, strangers on a screen. Every heart emoji, every like, every comment becomes a hit of emotional sugar that keeps us going. For a while. But like any drug, approval never satisfies for long. The high fades. The silence between notifications starts to feel unbearable. So we post again, perform again, pretend again, anything to get that next fix. And slowly, we lose touch with who we are when no one's watching. Epictetus warned us about this centuries ago. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. What he meant was simple. If you're always chasing other people's approval, you'll never live freely. Because every time you let their opinion define you, you hand over your power. You become a performer in someone else's story. Approval is a drug, and silence is the cure. Silence, because it breaks the addiction. When you stop hearing constant feedback, you're forced to listen inward instead of outward. At first, it's uncomfortable. The absence of validation feels like rejection. But then you realize something. You didn't disappear. You just stopped performing. And for the first time in years, you can hear your real voice again. When you're single, you have the chance to detox from this addiction. You can spend days without needing someone to tell you that you're enough. You can learn how to build a life that feels good, even when no one's clapping. That's the freedom most people never taste, because they're too busy chasing approval from people who barely know them. The Stoics believed that peace comes from within, not from opinions, not from status, not from being seen. They taught that your worth is self-contained, untouchable. But modern life tries to convince us otherwise. Social media sells you a mirror that only reflects your best angles, never your real soul. It trains you to crave attention instead of purpose, visibility instead of meaning. When you stop chasing validation, something profound happens. Your life gets quieter, but deeper. You start doing things not because they look good, but because they are good. You read without posting it. You work on your craft without broadcasting progress. You enjoy moments without needing proof they happened. You start living, not performing. And the irony? That's when people start noticing you the most. True confidence doesn't shout. It radiates. The person who doesn't beg for approval commands respect without asking. Because authenticity is magnetic. It draws the right people and repels the wrong ones. But here's the key. You can't fake it. You can't pretend not to care while still secretly refreshing the screen. You have to actually let go. You have to feel the sting of being misunderstood and still choose peace. You have to face the fear of silence and still stay centered. That's how real strength is built. Every time you choose truth over applause, you win back a piece of your soul. Every time you act from conviction instead of insecurity, you free yourself a little more. This is what the Stoics practiced every day. The art of inner validation. They didn't need a crowd to confirm their value because they knew virtue was its own reward. So ask yourself, how much of your life have you lived for others' approval? How many choices have you made just to look good, sound smart, or fit in? And how much lighter would you feel if you stopped performing altogether? Because once you stop performing, you start living. You begin to understand that silence isn't emptiness, it's strength. You start seeing that approval is temporary, but self-respect lasts forever. So take a step back from the noise. Be willing to be unseen. Be willing to be misunderstood. Because freedom begins the moment you no longer need to be validated for being yourself. Most people fear solitude because they mistake it for weakness. They hear the word alone and think it means empty. But solitude isn't a void, it's a forge. It's the gym for your soul. The place where you build strength no one can see. The kind that doesn't crack when life hits hard. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful than your own soul." And yet, that's the one place most people refuse to visit. They'll travel anywhere, scroll endlessly, talk endlessly, just to avoid being alone with their own thoughts. But sooner or later, life will corner you into silence. And in that silence, you'll face yourself, the unedited version, the one you can't distract away. At first, solitude feels like standing in a storm without shelter. The nights stretch longer. The rooms feel colder. Every insecurity you've buried starts to surface. You begin to see all the ways you've depended on others for validation, comfort, and purpose. It's uncomfortable, but that's exactly why it's powerful. Because solitude is pressure, and pressure builds resilience. When no one's there to comfort you, you learn how to comfort yourself. When no one's there to motivate you, you learn how to rise on your own. You start to realize that strength isn't built when life is easy. It's built when you carry yourself through the nights that break most people. Solitude refines your character the way fire refines gold. The heat burns away the noise, the ego, the illusions, until what's left is something pure, steady, unshakable. You learn patience. You learn endurance. You learn how to sit in discomfort and let it teach you instead of destroy you. And here's the paradox. The longer you stay in solitude, the less lonely you feel. Because somewhere in the quiet, you stop waiting for someone to save you. You realize you were the one you were waiting for all along. You discover a peace that no relationship could have given you, because it doesn't depend on anyone else. You begin to notice small, powerful shifts. Your thoughts grow sharper. Your emotions become calmer. The chaos that once consumed you loses its grip. You start enjoying your own company. You find yourself laughing alone, not because of loneliness, but because peace finally feels natural. That's when you know solitude has done its work. It's turned your isolation into independence, your silence into stability. You're no longer afraid of being alone. You're empowered by it. Every Stoic warrior is forged in silence. Stay with us on True Stoic Way to train your mind this way. Think of the Stoics, Marcus, Seneca, Epictetus. They didn't seek noise, they sought clarity. They understood that time spent in solitude was never wasted, it was invested. Because every quiet hour strengthens the mind the way lifting weights strengthens the body. The world constantly tells you that you need to be surrounded, entertained, connected. But connection without depth is just noise. When you can sit alone in peace, you become rare. because you no longer chase distractions. You no longer fear silence. And that stillness becomes your superpower. Of course, solitude will test you. There will be nights when you wish for a voice to fill the room, mornings when you feel the ache of absence. But each time you survive one of those moments, you grow stronger. You realize that nothing external, no rejection, no distance, no silence can break you. Because once you've built strength in solitude, no storm can destroy your peace. You've learned how to be your own anchor. You've trained your mind to hold steady when the waves rise. You've built an inner fortress so strong that the world can shake around you, but you remain centered. That's what solitude is for. It doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It doesn't make you hard. It makes you solid. The kind of person who walks into life not needing anyone to complete them, but ready to share from overflow. So don't run from solitude. Step into it. Train in it. Let it shape you the way the Stoics did, with courage, patience, and unwavering focus. Because once you've faced yourself in silence, no noise can ever overpower you again. Most people forget their purpose trying to keep someone else comfortable. They start with dreams, sharp, burning, alive. But somewhere along the way they trade those dreams for peace treaties. They learn to dim their fire just enough to avoid conflict, to shrink their goals just enough to fit into someone else's expectations. And by the time they realize what they've done, years have passed, and the mission that once made their heart race has become a quiet ache in the background of their life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A man's true delight is to do the things he was made for." Those words hold a truth most people never live long enough to understand, because they spend their lives pleasing instead of pursuing. They bend their path around the moods, fears, and insecurities of others. They call it love, loyalty, compromise, but often it's just fear disguised as kindness. Fear of losing approval, fear of being misunderstood, fear of walking alone. But purpose doesn't thrive in fear. Purpose demands space. It demands sacrifice. It demands solitude. When you're single, you have that space. You don't have to explain why you work late, why you grind on weekends, or why your passion doesn't fit into someone else's schedule. You don't have to apologize for wanting more, or for choosing your mission over comfort. You get to pour your time, your focus, and your heart into the work that gives your life meaning. Look at the people who've changed the world. The thinkers, the artists, the inventors, the Stoics themselves. Their greatness wasn't born in noise or comfort. It was forged in long seasons of solitude. They spent years alone with their thoughts, fighting their doubts, refining their craft, building something that would outlast them. They weren't avoiding love. They were cultivating purpose. Purpose is a mountain. You can't climb it carrying another person's fears. You can't scale it while dragging someone's insecurity behind you. You can't reach its peak if you stop every few steps to make sure everyone around you feels okay about your pace. Climbing requires focus. It requires letting go. And sometimes it requires walking alone. When you're on your mission, there will be people who don't understand you. They'll say you're too obsessed, too distant, too focused. Let them talk. The Stoics taught that virtue, doing what you're meant to do, is the highest good. You don't need applause for following your path. The reward is in the act itself. Staying single gives you the freedom to live this truth. You can spend hours training your body, sharpening your mind, building your vision without interruption. You can fail without judgment, succeed without jealousy, and adjust your path without having to negotiate it with anyone else. You start to realize that solitude isn't a punishment, it's a launch pad. And here's the paradox. The more you focus on your mission, the more attractive you become. People are drawn to purpose. They can sense when someone's life is driven by meaning instead of validation. You stop chasing attention, and attention starts chasing you. But that's never the point, because when you're truly aligned with your mission, recognition becomes irrelevant. The work itself becomes your fulfillment. The Stoics believed that a man's duty was to live according to his nature, to do what he was made for, no matter how difficult or lonely the path might be. And once you taste that kind of focus, you'll never again trade it for comfort. Because comfort feels good for a moment, but purpose feels right forever. So if you're walking this road alone right now, don't see it as isolation. See it as preparation. Every early morning, every late night, Every silent hour spent building something meaningful is a declaration that your life belongs to your mission, not to other people's opinions. And when you walk your path alone long enough, you become emotionally bulletproof. You stop needing applause. You stop fearing judgment. You stop seeking permission. Because once your life revolves around purpose, no distraction, no rejection, no misunderstanding can shake you. Your mission becomes your home. Your discipline becomes your compass, and your solitude becomes your strength. Most people don't realize how much of their emotional life depends on someone else. Until that person disappears, they rely on others for calm, for validation, for happiness, for direction. They say they want love, but what they really crave is emotional rescue. And that's why they fall apart when it's gone, because they never learned how to stand steady on their own. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." He wasn't talking about controlling the world or suppressing feelings. He was talking about self-governance, the ability to guide your emotions instead of being ruled by them. Because if someone else can change your peace with a single text, a single look, or a single absence, then your freedom is still borrowed. Emotional independence doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop being controlled by what you feel. It's not detachment, it's discipline. The modern world calls it emotional self-regulation, but the Stoics called it wisdom, the calm ability to respond instead of react, to observe instead of absorb, to choose peace over panic. When you're single, you get to practice this in real time. There's no one there to soothe your anxiety when life gets messy. No one to lift you up when you're low, or tell you you're enough when doubt creeps in. At first, that feels terrifying. But then you realize, this is where you build strength. This is where you stop outsourcing your emotions and start mastering them. You learn how to comfort yourself without collapsing, how to breathe through uncertainty instead of drowning in it, how to sit with sadness without letting it define you. You stop running from pain and start understanding it, seeing it not as punishment, but as a teacher. When storms hit, you don't call for shelter, you become it. You learn how to be your own calm in the chaos, your own warmth in the cold, your own compass when the world spins. And once you experience that kind of strength, you'll never again hand over your peace for temporary comfort. The truth is, emotional independence doesn't make you cold. It makes you stable. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop fearing rejection. You stop expecting others to carry what's yours to carry. Instead, you begin to generate your own emotional fuel. You know how to center yourself after a bad day, how to recharge in solitude, how to let go without losing balance. From a psychological view, this is emotional maturity, the art of self-regulation. It's the ability to notice your triggers, to breathe before reacting, to take responsibility for your own state of mind. The Stoics practiced this every day. When anger arose, they paused. When sadness came, they reflected. When temptation whispered, they remembered their principles. Emotional mastery isn't about feeling less, it's about understanding more. And here's what happens when you build that inner stability. Your relationships change too. You no longer attach to people out of need. You don't demand constant attention or approval. You don't crumble when someone withdraws affection. You love from strength, not from scarcity. You give freely, not fearfully. Because your peace no longer depends on anyone's presence. It lives inside you. Think of it like building an inner fortress. The walls aren't made of stone, but of awareness, patience, and control. Every time you calm yourself down instead of lashing out, you lay another brick. Every time you choose understanding over anger, another. And soon you've built a sanctuary so strong that even when the world shakes, you remain centered. There will still be storms. There will still be moments when your heart aches. But you'll handle them differently. You'll stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" That shift, from victim to student, is what separates the reactive from the resilient. When you reach this level of self-mastery, you'll notice something beautiful. Your emotions stop being enemies. They become guides. They no longer control your direction. They reveal your depth. You begin to trust yourself again. You realize that no matter what happens, who stays, who leaves, who understands, you'll be okay. Because your peace doesn't live in someone else's hands anymore. And once you stand strong alone, you realize you were never broken. You were just waiting to meet the version of yourself that no one else could build for you. You don't need another half, you are already whole. It's one of the greatest lies we're taught, that love is about finding the missing piece, that happiness begins only when someone else arrives to complete us. From childhood, we're fed the idea that we're fragments searching for another fragment to make us whole. But the truth is, you were never broken. You were never half. You were only taught to forget your completeness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The Stoics knew that peace doesn't come from adding more. It comes from recognizing what's already there. You are not waiting to be completed by someone else. You are remembering your own fullness. When you stay single long enough to see this, everything changes. You stop searching for people who will fix you, heal you, or define you. You stop expecting someone else to fill the silence inside you, because you've learned to fill it yourself. You begin to see relationships not as survival, but as choice. Not as a need, but as a gift freely given from abundance. The journey to wholeness is not always pretty. It's raw, quiet, and often lonely. It means facing the parts of yourself you've tried to hide, the insecurities, the doubts, the wounds that others left behind. It means forgiving yourself for the times you accepted less than you deserved. It means sitting with the discomfort of healing without a distraction. But the deeper you go, the stronger you become. Every day you choose yourself, every boundary you set, every time you refuse to beg for love, you're reclaiming another piece of your soul. You're reminding yourself that your value was never something another person could give or take away. Wholeness doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you'll never feel lonely or long for connection. It means you no longer need someone else to prove your worth. You love from fullness, not from emptiness. And that changes everything. When your cup overflows, love stops being a transaction. It becomes a gift. You stop giving to get something back. You give because you have more than enough to share. You stop keeping score. Stop chasing validation. Stop demanding that someone complete what's already whole. Love becomes simple again. Not about possession or dependence, but about presence. Think about how different relationships would look if everyone loved from wholeness instead of fear. There would be no manipulation, no silent resentment, no endless tests. Just two complete people walking side by side, sharing strength instead of seeking rescue. That's what real love is, not the merging of two incomplete lives, but the meeting of two complete souls. The Stoics believed that happiness is self-sufficiency. They taught that you can't control what others bring into your life, but you can control what you bring to yourself. That's the heart of becoming whole, realizing that your peace, your joy, your stability aren't negotiable or dependent. They live inside you, always accessible, always waiting. When you live from this place, you stop falling for illusions. You stop chasing people who promise completion because you already know the truth. You were never missing anything. You were only missing awareness. And here's the paradox. When you no longer need love, you finally attract the kind of love that's real. Because desperation pushes people away, but peace draws the right ones in. When you love yourself fully, you naturally gravitate toward relationships that reflect that same energy. Healthy, grounded, free. Becoming whole is the ultimate act of self-respect. It's telling the world, I will not wait for permission to feel complete. It's realizing that solitude isn't an absence of love. It's the soil where genuine love grows. So take this time, your single season, not as a gap, but as a gift. Heal what needs healing. Strengthen what's weak. Build what's been neglected. Learn what makes your soul come alive. Because the stronger you become within yourself, the better every future connection will be. Only when you're whole can you love without losing yourself. Only when you've met your own depths can you share them freely. And when you do, love stops being something you chase. It becomes something you naturally embody. In the end, it all comes down to this: freedom, strength, and self-mastery. The three pillars of a life that stands unshaken. The Stoic way. Every truth you've walked through in this journey has led here. The freedom of staying single isn't about isolation. It's about liberation. It's about remembering who you are before the world taught you to depend on others for peace. You've learned that when you avoid the wrong attachments, you protect your soul from confusion disguised as love. You've discovered that time, your most sacred resource, is the foundation of every great life, and that guarding it is the first step toward power. You've seen that self-mastery is built not in chaos, but in silence, and that the quiet discipline of solitude creates strength no comfort ever could. You've learned to guard your energy from the toxic, to say no without guilt, and to stop inviting poison disguised as companionship into your peace. You've faced the silence and realized that the emptiness you feared was never empty. It was space waiting for you to fill it with meaning. You've broken free from the trap of validation and finally understood that approval is an illusion, that the loudest applause often comes from people who never understood you anyway. You've stepped into solitude and felt its weight, and then, its power. You've discovered that every Stoic warrior is forged in silence, that loneliness is just a word for untrained solitude. You've focused on your mission instead of pleasing others, realizing that your life's work will never fit into someone else's comfort zone. You've built emotional independence, the ability to stay steady through storms, to be your own shelter, to breathe peace into your own chaos. And finally, you've learned the greatest lesson of all. You don't need another half, because you were never half to begin with. That's the beauty of this journey. It's not about running from love, it's about remembering your wholeness before you give it away. The world will tell you that being single means something's missing, that solitude is lack, that peace is loneliness. But that's a lie sold by those who've never learned to stand alone. Being single is not absence, it's preparation. It's the season where you build the foundation that will hold everything else. It's where you develop the kind of strength that makes love healthier, choices clearer, and life deeper. Because when you can stand on your own without fear, you don't just survive, you thrive. You stop begging life to give you meaning and start creating it. You stop chasing validation and start living with intention. You stop measuring love by how much you receive and start measuring it by how much peace you keep. Freedom, strength, self-mastery. These aren't just Stoic ideals. They're your armor, your compass, your code. They're the proof that real power comes not from controlling others, but from controlling yourself. The Stoics didn't seek to escape life's storms. They trained to walk through them calmly. That's what standing alone means, not isolation, but invincibility. Because once you know how to stand alone, you become untouchable. You're no longer swayed by rejection, or silence, or absence. You no longer need to chase what was never meant for you. You realize that everything and everyone that belongs in your life will meet you at your level of peace, not your level of panic. That's when your solitude transforms into sovereignty. You begin to see that standing alone isn't the end of your story. It's the part where you finally take the pen back. The Stoics believed that the good life comes from mastering yourself, from living by principles, not impulses. And once you've learned to do that, you'll never again settle for anything that weakens you. You'll only choose relationships, friendships, and experiences that add to your growth, not steal from it. You'll stop confusing noise with meaning, attention with affection, and temporary comfort with real connection. So if you're walking through this chapter right now, alone, rebuilding, rediscovering, understand this. You're not behind. You're in the forge. You're in the sacred place where strength is born, where your spirit hardens in the best way, where your clarity returns sharper than ever. You're learning how to be the kind of person who doesn't just endure life, but masters it. Because the one who can stand alone without fear can stand anywhere. So, take pride in this solitude. Protect your peace like treasure. Use this time to grow sharper, calmer, freer. Because one day, when the right person or opportunity crosses your path, you won't cling to it out of fear. You'll welcome it from strength. You'll share yourself not because you're empty, but because your cup is overflowing. Subscribe now to True Stoic Way, because here we don't chase approval, we build strength. We don't escape solitude, we train in it. And we don't need half love, we live whole. Remember this, you are not half of anything. You are whole. Protect that truth.